Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the home of the British Grand Prix. That's right, it is Sunday evening. It is the British GT Esports penultimate round of the season, and we are at Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for our GT3 real-world drivers and GT4 sim racing stars to continue their battle for what has been an incredible and engaging championship fight so far this season. Talking you through all the action today will be myself, Paul Jeffrey, as always, and alongside me, the voice of GT Racing, Mr. David Addison.
And what a race this promises to be, Paul. Evening, everybody. We're at the home of British Motor Racing, the home of the British Racing Drivers Club, and we have one of the best Grand Prix circuits. It has some very fast sections. It's got some really tight and twisty bits as well. So here, setup is a real compromise. Do you go for the fast bits? Do you go for the twiddly bits? Well, it's a halfway house, and it's going to be really interesting to see who comes out on top. And indeed, what progress GT4 cars can make. We're a little bit short on numbers in GT3, so there's the chance of a really good result outright for some of the quicker, ballast-free GT4 cars. As ever, you've got a race in isolation to look for in terms of what comes out of this Silverstone round, the penultimate round of the championship, as Paul says. But also, now we're getting to the business end of the championship, aren't we? And GT3, possibly GT4 as well, could be sewn up tonight, depending on what happens, especially looking pretty strong in GT3 for James Baldwin, who comes here with a really good advantage. In terms of the entry, let's quickly look at GT3. There is BRDC Rising Star GT4 champion Tom Canning and Ben Green at the top numerically. Angus Fender has had a race win. Jenson Button sadly not racing this evening, although James Baldwin and Alex Buncombe are, and they've locked out the front row of the grid. Adam Morgan ain't here, sad to say, because he's away testing his touring car tomorrow, so he can't give up the time this evening. But Liam McNeely, Gus Burton, and hopefully Leo Machitsky will be here for Fox Motorsport, Century Motorsport, and Barwell, respectively. We also will have Sandy Mitchell, reigning British GT champion. There's Bobby Trundley in the team Brit Aston, Jack Lemmer for Barwell, Morgan Short in the Roll Centre McLaren, and sadly Michael O'Brien also missing. I think he's one of a number of real-world drivers who's been at Donington this weekend and hasn't been able to get back in time to the rig. Now, what about GT4 as far as tonight is concerned? Well, there's Chris Hurker, Gregor Schill, hopefully he's going to be there, although again there was a question mark over the BMW racer, and although he's third in the championship, I fear he may be a non-starter. Tariq Gamil appeared for the most recent round at Brands Hatch and is now fifth in the championship. New qualifiers, Joe Brown and Gabriel Lefenet. Moritz Lerner, second to Niels Naujoks. He needs a good result here to keep the championship hopes alive. New hot laps qualifier, Deacon Fairclough, Robbie Stapleford and Jack McIntyre, both very strong. Jack Mack on pole in GT4, and another newcomer is Pierre-Olivier Cloutier. Igor Orodnikov missing, sadly. Samir Ibrahimi is here in the Audi. Niels Koch is a new qualifier. Michael Kundacioglu, we've seen before, the championship leader, ballasted now with 30 kilos, Niels Naujoks. Also, Florian Hasse will be one to watch. Another new qualifier is Andreas Schwerin. George Boothby sadly ain't taking part, but Ivan Shementinsky, who is seventh in GT4 in the championship, is. So, Paul, a really good mix of driver. And Niels Naujoks with that 30 kilos of weight, it seems in qualifying to have really hurt him.
Yeah, 30 kilos of weight in any car, in any conditions, are going to be a disadvantage, of course. Naujoks, we are well aware, has got a little bit of something to say about the competitiveness of BMW in GT4. Balance of performance, like in all GT racing, takes place in that class, and the BMW may be lacking a little bit in outright lap time, and carrying those extra 30 kilos is really compromising Niels Naujoks at Silverstone. And of course, David, it looks dry on screen, but it's wet on track as well, so that's going to be even harder.
And it's also perhaps going to give the advantage to James Baldwin, who did a little bit of real-world racing before he went into the sim environment, became the world's fastest gamer, 2 wins, a second place, and that second place, don't forget, was after he won on the road. He is sitting pretty in the championship. Now, he is currently, as you can see, 28 points ahead of Jody Fannin. Jody not here because he's another driver with real-world commitment, so he's missing. So it's really Baldwin versus Angus Fender as far as the championship situation is concerned. Michael O'Brien missing, Ben Green has a chance to make headway. But really, Angus Fender is going to be, in many ways, the focus of attention in GT3 to see what he can do about reducing that deficit against James Baldwin. And fundamentally, Paul, he's got to be ahead of him.
Yeah, he's got to finish ahead. In these conditions on this track, that's not going to be an easy feat for Angus Fenger to achieve. And it's same in GT4, David. Nils Naujoks, our championship leader, having a very competitive season despite those words of discontent about the balanced performance. Boothby in second place is a great driver, came in, won first time out, but unfortunately not taking part today. Jack McIntyre on pole position for this race, so McIntyre needs a strong result to keep this championship alive. He's on 32 points, plays 55 for Naujoks ahead. Mortis Lerner, that we've seen a lot of this season, he's another great driver. And Luca Berg in fifth position. I don't believe Luca is racing today, but that's another shame to see him missing, but that's the nature of the beast with these qualification events, isn't it?
That's the problem. He did not qualify. He won, he got the ballast, he had a pretty horrible time at Snetterton, and that really put him on the back foot, didn't it, from then on. Yes. Now, wet track, as you've said, just talk us a little bit through this. This is something that can be built into the game, isn't it? Built into the Assetto Corsa platform before we go racing. How much of an impact is that going to have for the drivers, and indeed how accurate is the simulation going to be, Paul?
It's going to be a very different challenge. This is the first time this season that we've seen wet conditions to this level in the British GT Esports Championship. Our sim racing drivers, they'll be comfortable in these conditions. They'll have driven in these conditions many times before. But for our real world drivers, this is really going to throw a little bit of a cat amongst the pigeons, I think. They'll have different experiences in sim, in the wet. But to answer your question, David, the wet conditions are simulated really, really well in ACC. You've got aquaplaning should the rain fall hard enough, and obviously aquaplaning, as we all know, is when the bottom of the car hits the puddle, the wheels come off the ground, you are but a passenger. So you're going to need to know where those puddles are forming on track. But of course the track's dynamic, it's changing lap after lap depending on how much or how little rainfall we've got, how often the cars are going and forming a dry line. So just like real life, 50, 60, 70% of it will be prior knowledge, and the rest will be making it up as you go along and attuning your driving to the conditions.
Well, that's Angus Fender, who, as we look back at certain bits of qualifying from earlier on, was on the grid third in the free practice session. At this point he was fifth. So the BMW, is it going to be a well-suited car? Well, it can stretch its legs around Silverstone, but even though Angus did quite a lot of sim racing before he came into real world racing, you're up against James Baldwin and Alex Buncombe with him on the front of the grid. So actually, irrespective of what Angus Fender can do, there's another McLaren there that he's got to worry about, because Alex Buncombe theoretically ought to be, if you like, the buffer for James Baldwin. He can be the spoiler. Let Baldwin get away and he can be the rear gunner, preventing Angus Fender from getting up with him.
Do you think they'll play that game though, or do you think Buncombe's in it for himself and just try to get the best result possible?
Well, there's an element of saying, yes, go for your best result, and in theory Alex should have the quicker car because it's weight free. However, it would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it, to play the team game, wrap up the championship. Let's wait and see. But it's going to be intriguing to see what the strategy is. James had an odd season in as much as quite often the start of the race looks like it's got away from him, and yet it always builds up nicely in the second stint, doesn't it? We saw that last time out, for example, at Brands.
Yes, that's true. And something else I think we need to think about, David, that we've not mentioned yet. Of course, it's raining, which means visibility is going to be limited, which is going to make it all the more difficult for the GT4 cars to see the faster GT3s coming upon them to lap them, and for the GT3s as well to make their way through the traffic. So there's an element of danger, I think, to throw into the mix as well, where it's going to be a variable that we've not had to contend with this season, and that's going to be fascinating to see how our drivers negotiate their way through that element of difficulty that's been thrown into the mix.
I think you're right. Yes, it's got so many different elements. It's the circuit with the most room in a way, because you've got lots of run-off tarmac, of course, for Formula One purposes. Total contrast from the likes of Brands or Oulton Park. But yes, you then throw the weather into it as well. That is the end of Hanger Straight, looking down towards Stowe Corner. The Porsche driving experience that used to be used to be the Rally Sprint course, and the pit out board is there at the Cops Corner end of the pit lane. It will be the heritage pits and start line that is used, rather than the wing, which is used for Formula One and international sports car racing on occasions. So the drivers will rejoin the server. That is looking down at Brooklands, coming under the vehicle bridge into the left-hander of Brooklands, up at the loop before Aintree. That's part of the new element of the circuit introduced a few years ago to the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. And if you're really good, you get on the podium. That, again, is the wing podium. And Silverstone looking resplendent, ready to have this fourth round of the British GT Esports Championship. James Baldwin then for pole position, Alex Buncombe with him at the front of the grid. Let's have a stroll up the grid then. Baldwin and Buncombe row 1, Angus Fenders BMW and Sandy Mitchell, who struggled to get off the line for the formation lap at Brands. Hopefully won't have those dramas again here. He is 4th on the grid. 5th on the grid, Bobby Trundley for Team Brit, and Tom Canning's Aston Martin alongside. Ben Green in the number 3 BMW for Century Motorsport, quite a long way back actually, but he's got work to do. And Gus Burton, perennially unlucky in the championship thus far, lines up ahead of second generation racers Morgan Short and Jack Lemmer, with Liam McNeely to complete the GT3 element of the grid. And alongside him, in fact, rather than a separate row, is going to be Jack McIntyre in the Porsche. There you've got Tariq Gamil in the red and white 718 Cayman on the inside there. Next to him is going to be the Alpine of Michael Kundecioglu, and then Florian Hasser's McLaren. Number 33 should be there. Robbie Stapleford's Aston Martin. It is Chris Hooker in the Gulf liveried Audi next. Then you've got another of the newcomers. Number 39 is Pierre-Olivier Cloutier, and number 20, the McLaren, is Moritz Lerner. Nils Naujok, see what I mean about him being a long way back? He's out-qualified Semi Abrami, and then the hot laps qualifier Niels Koch in the Chevrolet. Next on the grid, Andreas Schwerin. There is a gap where Ivan Shermantinsky should have been, but he's got technical issues, so he is not there. However, Deegan Fairclough with the Mercedes is also there. You see the Ginetta of the French driver Gabriel Lafreniere, and another of the Ginettas, Joe Brown, to round out the grid. That, Paul, is the scene set as we get set for the 4th 1 hour round of the British GT Esports Championship.
And what a scene that has been set indeed. You couldn't script it better for this penultimate race. Nils Naujok's the man, very much on form in GT4, mired at the back of the grid. He's got wet weather conditions, which in a way will play to his advantage, carrying 30 kilos of weight. But on the flip side of the coin, as we've talked about already, the visibility issues, the increased chances of making a mistake. He's got some new drivers that he's not raced against that have qualified in the mix as well. So Naujok's is in a position where it could go very, very well or very, very poorly, and that's going to be fascinating for this race, but also for the championship as well, because Donington Park in 2 weeks' time is the final round, and it'd be great if we can still keep the championship alive up to the final round of the season, and that's very, very possible in GT4 at least.
Absolutely so, and that I think is going to be the main focus of attention over the next hour, really. As you rightly say, new drivers, a shuffle grid. Nils Naujok's, who's been perhaps a little bit frustrated by the BOP and how the BMW has copped for it around here. But as we've also discussed over the course of the previous rounds, if you're really savvy about this, you might sacrifice points to sacrifice weight or relative to the weight you would gain otherwise into the next round. And Nils Naujok took his maiden win last time out and therefore got the 30 kilos. Well, of course, second place would have been fewer points, but less weight for this round. And this, because it's a really fast circuit and it's flat as well, is perhaps all about power, and you need to have a quick car underneath you. So what can Nils Naujok do? In his favour, Paul, is that he is massively experienced. And if anybody should be able to cope with not only ballast, but the rain and the slippery track that will produce, it should be Nils Naujok's.
Yeah, and that's bang on the money, actually, David. And I think, for me, I'm maybe doing a little bit of a disservice to all of the drivers by saying this, but this race, there's going to be an element of survival rather than the out-and-out performance that we've seen in previous rounds. Yes, you're going to need to be quick. Of course you are, and push the car to the limit. But also, I do think the driver who makes the least mistakes come the checkered flag will be the furthest up the field, and somebody like Naujok's, who's got natural ability, has got speed, but most important of all, has got tons of experience in these sorts of scenarios. He's been in championship fights before, he's raced in high pressure competitions, he's raced in these kind of conditions on this kind of simulation. That is all massive cards in Nils Naujok's favour. But like in real world racing, it's fine having everything under control from your end, but you only need to pile into somebody else's mistake for all that good work to go straight away out of the window. And this first lap or two is going to be critical for all drivers.
Can I just throw something else at you as well with your knowledge of the sim world? Just look at the flags on the pit wall and how much they're fluttering. Now, Silverstone, old airfield, it is It is flat. It is a vast expanse of land. It is not unusual to have fairly inclement weather, and it's not just the rain, but also the wind. Now, how will that affecting the aero be replicated, and is that going to be something we need to keep an eye on as well?
That is something that's worth keeping an eye on, because not only have you got the wind effects out on circuit, but that might very well blow the weather away. Just because it's raining at this moment in time at a certain level of intensity does not mean that's going to be locked in for the duration of the race. It may get harder, the rain, it may get lighter, it might go away completely, and that throws us in to the realms of what are we going to do about tyre strategy? Mandatory pit stop as per the rest of the season. Do you hold out as late as possible on the hope that you can swap boots onto a set of dry tyres should it dry up? Or do you get down pit road and keep on the freshest rubber at all times? So another variable of a day of many variables, Mr. Addison.
Well, indeed, it's all part of the fun of sports car racing, of endurance racing, of pit stop racing. So much more can happen. And the pit stop itself, of course, you have to take on a minimum of a litre of fuel. You can also sort out damage, and as Paul rightly says, you can sort out tyres as well if you need to. So the cars then on this formation lap weave their way to try and get some warmth and some pressures up within the Pirelli rubber. James Baldwin starting on pole position, and making his way then down Hanger Straight towards Stoke Corner. Alex Buncombe, Brockpan Endurance Series champion for effectively the same team, you could argue, because it was, although he was a Nissan driver, that was run by Bob Neville, and Bob is intrinsically involved with Jenson Button and Alex's brother Chris Buncombe within Team Rocket RJN. The RJN bit is the Bob Neville element. Bob, recent full associate member of the British Racing Drivers Club, and Alex's dad, Jonathan Buncombe, very successful saloon and touring car racer. Grandfather John Buncombe, another great exponent of saloon car racing. So the Buncombe dynasty has been successful in saloons and GT cars for many, many years. Now, what about GT4? Jack McIntyre has had a season of ghastly pit stops, it seems, Paul, and the pace is good, but something goes wrong in the pits. Now, he's on pole position, he's ballast free, and he needs to make some points up, does he not, against Niels Naujoks, because he is third in the standings, and he needs to crack on with this.
Yeah, this is a critical race weekend for McIntyre, as you say. He needs the full 25 points, but just to jump back to GT3 a second, David, notice how Baldwin is staying away from the racing line to keep those wet tyres as cool as possible. He's staying in the heavier of the rainfall on the circuit, something I'm not seeing the other GT3 drivers do at this stage. So already, even on the formation lap, Baldwin's thinking ahead about preserving the life of the tyres, and that's going to be interesting how that plays out over 60 minutes.
I mean, he is the benchmark driver. Not only is he a real world race winner in the McLaren in British GT, but he has this very, very impressive pedigree in sim racing, and the rest, if they're savvy, will watch what he's doing and try and follow suit. Angus Fender, though, needs to be really brave on the run down towards Copse Corner. If nothing else, he's got to split those McLarens. If he can't grab the race lead, fair enough, he is on the second row, but he's got to try and split those McLarens. If he's ahead of Buncombe, he's got a chance of getting up after Baldwin. If he's got to get past both McLarens in the first stint, life's going to get really tough, isn't it?
It is. It's going to be critical times, these first few corners, and I can't wait to see how it all pans out.
So, as the cars then come through Luffield up towards Woodcote Corner, we are ready for the fourth round of the British GT Esports Championship. The road is wet, and the GT3 McLarens that have locked out the front row of the grid are those of James Baldwin on pole position, Alex Buncombe lining up alongside him. That is James Baldwin's view as the cars make their way now up through Woodcote. If the race director is happy, then the lights will change to get this fourth round of the championship underway. The run down towards Copse Corner is imminent because the lights will change any second. When we go green, it will be blast off, and that is now as the cars go underneath the gantry. Baldwin makes a good start, and Buncombe straight away tries to go defensive against Angus Fender, who is through on the inside line. He's done it. Sandy Mitchell's made a good start as well. He's fourth, but Angus Fender has done what he needed to do, split the McLarens going through Copse. James Baldwin leads by a couple of lengths already. Fender is second, Buncombe is third, Mitchell is fourth, fifth is Bobby Trundley, sixth is Tom Canning. But that was a brave effort by Angus Fender. He had one opportunity to do it, and he had to do it at Copse. It worked out well, and now he's on his toes going after Baldwin.
Game on in GT3, beautiful manoeuvre there by the BMW, dropping back to GT4. Jack McIntyre retains the race lead. There's been a little bit of contact further down the running order in GT4, so we'll have a look at that one a little bit later on. But up front, fantastic, exactly what we needed to see in these opening few corners. And now, can he close the gap to Baldwin ahead? That's the big question.
And I understand that Jack Lemmer has had a moment at Copse on the opening lap, number 77, the Barwell Lamborghini. So Jack Lemmer in strife as the leaders come through Club Corner. Then this long right-hander then that brings them up past the wing down towards Abbey. You can see what's going on lower down. There is Jack Lemmer recovering. So now he's got to get himself up through the GT4 traffic coming into Club. Teammate Sandy Mitchell running currently in 4th place. Alex Buncombe is 3rd on the back of the BMW of Angus Fender, and he pulls to the inside there, coming through Farm. That's the outside line for Village, that's the inside line for the Loop, but Angus Fender gets out his elbows, runs Alex Buncombe out wide, and Alex can't find a way through, so he's got to slot back in behind. Sandy Mitchell is there in 4th place. Now, great little battle it is to watch, but all of that squabbling, of course, has just enabled Baldwin to get away by another couple of lengths.
It has, and that was quite intelligent driving from Angus Fender there. He knew there was less grip on the curb. He just encouraged Buncombe's car out to the outside of the circuit. Buncombe runs out of grip, has to control a little moment behind the wheel, and that gives Fender the breathing space that he needs. But very, very quickly, Alex Buncombe starting to close back on that BMW, and David, the McLarens look like they've got pace to spare in these opening few laps,
which is pretty demoralising for the opposition. Niels Naujoks on the inset, coming under attack from one of the Alpines there as he turns through. Number 62 is Niels Naujoks then, and he's got Michael Kundetchioglu right up behind him as Alex Buncombe then rounds Copse Corner. This is the Naujoks-Kundetchioglu battle. So Niels Naujoks has got a lot of work to do within GT4. If you look at the timing tower, you'll see that under the number of the car, that little blue triangle, the blue corner, signifies GT4. So Naujoks is a long way back in class. He's 16th overall. Kundetchioglu goes through, and then there's Gus Burton's delayed GT3 BMW. So that may have got involved with Jack Lemmer on the first lap, hence it has fallen down the order a bit.
Which is to be expected when the field is as tired as it is at the moment. Naujoks P6 in class. I'm just hearing in my ears a little bit of contact we saw at the back of the shot there, just shot away from it before we saw the conclusion as Alex Buncombe again climbing over the back of Angus Fender's BMW. This is intense pressure for Fender in, don't forget, wet conditions where going off the line is going to offer less grip than the racing line, so it's difficult to overtake, but it's also incredibly treacherous for defending. And Sandy Mitchell in the Lamborghini just behind, keeping his eye on what these two are up to, thinking maybe there's 2 for the price of 1 coming very shortly.
This is bad news for Fender though, because as long as he's got to defend like this, he's falling away from James Baldwin, and actually those two rather more aero-friendly shapes of the McLaren and the Lamborghini looking as though they are now the quicker cars. So Fender is having to work overtime, isn't he, to keep them at bay. Bobby Trundley's Grunt and Go Aston is there in 5th place, the front engine Aston, similar setup if you like to the BMW, but Fender now really is having to think about defending, not attacking Baldwin anymore, not reducing that deficit as they come down towards Brooklands, and Alex Buncombe is inching up onto the back of the BMW. The Century Motorsport BMW M6 is still second, but this battle pack is getting longer and longer all the time. The newcomer Pierre-Olivier Cloutier is on his toes there as he battles his way with Niels Koch. So you've got the KTM versus the Chevrolet. How about that for variety in GT4?
No 2 are different cars could you possibly wish to imagine between those two. We've seen one of the BMWs now making his way through the field, so that's a slower GT3 that's been held up earlier in the race. But it's great to see these 2 new drivers in GT4 acquitting themselves really strongly in the opening stage of the race.
I bet Niels Koch was thinking, great, Chevrolet Camaro for Silverstone, all that power, fantastic. It's going to rain, great. Is it too late to change? That was Gus Burton's BMW, incidentally, just getting back through the pack. So Gus Burton, who, say it every round, seems to get involved in strife early on, playing catch-up once again. But good, quick driver, Gus Burton, came out of Ginetta Racing into GT cars. Right, on board with Sandy Mitchell. He is looking at the back of Alex Buncombe's McLaren. Alex, in turn, staring at the back of Angus Fender's BMW as they go through Stowe Corner. Up front, however, the race leader, James Baldwin, 2.8 seconds clear at the end of the previous lap, so he's looking very secure up front as Buncombe brakes late at the end of Vale, almost tags the tail of the BMW there, doesn't he?
That was incredibly close from Buncombe and Fender there. Managed to avoid contact, thankfully, so everybody survives. But these three, squabbling amongst themselves, are starting to allow Bobby Trundley and the rest of the field to close in as well. So Trundley, a driver that we've not seen much of as we go to a replay at the start, David.
Well, this was Angus Fender being very, very brave on the inside. He knew exactly what he had to do to split those McLarens, and he did it. He had the tighter line back from a row back, and look what was going on behind. Jack Lemmer was tapped into a spin, and absolute mayhem broke out around him with GT4 cars scattering in avoidance. You can see there Gus Burton rejoining, but there are quite a few that were involved in that. I think Chris Hooker might have been one of them in the Audi, or possibly Samir Ibrahimi, but either way, GT3 incident, and it was the GT4 cars coming through the corner that seemed to cop for it.
And that is a result of course, it's the cars are closely compacted together. You've got very little reaction time. You've got very little vision as well due to the spray kicking up. You can't really see it on the broadcast, but trust me, when you're in the cockpit, it's very, very heavy is the spray onto the window. The windscreen wiper only clears a small portion of your overall view that you're used to. So you're coming across that one, but also there's limited grip from the wet surface. So evasive action that you try and make, as Alex Buncombe getting all crossed up through cops, evasive action that you try and make to avoid the car in front of you that works in dry will just pitch you straight into a spin in the wet, and then you become one of the many.
And I think one of those that was involved in that incident from GT4 is Moritz Lerner, because he's been quite busy in the Discord channel already, and that therefore is the man second in the GT4 Championship, effectively out of the race. So advantage now Yox there after all. Back on board with Buncombe then, going after Angus Fender. So second and third they are. BMW ahead of McLaren as the lead gap continues to grow. James Baldwin getting away, but Buncombe now is almost within striking distance once again, isn't he?
Yeah, and this is fantastic for James Baldwin at the front of the field. He doesn't have to work his car particularly hard, doesn't have to work the tyres like these cars behind who are in this little fight now. 1, 2, 3, 4 cars, a fifth trying to buy in, and Buncombe runs wide.
He does indeed, and Mitchell's on his toes and gets up on the inside, so Sandy Mitchell now goes third. And what about Bobby Trundley? He's gone up into fourth place as well. The Team Brit driver with the Aston going really strongly here. And Tom Canning's Aston Martin ain't that far behind, so one tiny little mistake from Alex Buncombe. It's cost him 2 places. It could cost him a third as the cars now come up towards Village. Sandy Mitchell gets through then, up into third place. Now, what can he do about Fender? Or, now that he doesn't have to defend for a couple of corners, can Angus break away and finally go after Baldwin? Quite a lot of unknowns in all of this at the moment. Buncombe equally needs to fight back.
Yeah, that's disaster for Alex Buncombe, down to 5th position, and this is the danger when you've got a cork in the bottle situation like we have with Fender in second place. A half measure overtake or a mistake runs a little bit wide. You're not losing ground to the car ahead, but you're losing 3, 4, 5 positions. And Bobby Trundley, who I started to speak about before the replay, keeps himself to himself, does a good job, never do anything really controversial or dramatic. Boom, 4th position. Great drive again from Bobby Trundley in the beautiful Team Brit Aston. James Baldwin, purple sectors almost every lap at the moment as the fuel load comes down, as the tyres get warmer, as the grip increases. So James Baldwin is just nailing fastest lap after fastest lap. And the last one was a 2 minutes 5.544, best lap of the race. So James Baldwin then, championship leader, race leader. And incident on the opening lap involving the cars of Jack Lemmer and Morgan Short, racing incident, so that explains why Jack had the spin. There was a brush with Morgan Short, but nobody cops the blame for it. It's a racing incident. Now, what about the Naoyox versus Kundachoglu fight? The BMW 6th in class when we last looked, fending off the Alpine, coming now out of Luffield up towards the completion of the lap. We've had just about 10 minutes of the race done as they come now up towards the timing line. And this is Kundachoglu's view. The BMW has got the run in a straight line, hasn't it? It has, and I think Nils Naoyox will be satisfied with this opening portion of the race. He's kept himself out of trouble. We saw cars spearing left, right, up, down and every which way on the opening lap. He'll be relieved to have avoided that drama. A couple of his championship rivals have been compromised. We're looking at Trundley now in traffic. So already 10 minutes gone and we're starting to get GT4 traffic, David. That's another element thrown into the mix, and just look how that's allowed the Aston to start closing up onto this little fight as well. So that's Tom Canning starting to get involved for this fight for second position. Yeah, Tom Canning's doing a good job here. He flies under the radar a bit, doesn't he, really? Tom, who was a GT4 champion in the real world in British GT.
BRDC Rising Star and very, very quick driver, as Alex Buncombe fights back against Bobby Trundley now, heading down Wellington Straight. If anything, the rain looks like it's getting worse, doesn't it? There is Buncombe versus Trundley. McLaren stuck behind the Aston Martin up the road. Sandy Mitchell has not yet latched onto the tail of Angus Fender, and now Yox, look at this, under real pressure again from Kundakcioglu in GT4.
And this goes against the form that we see. Michael Kundakcioglu, very, very strong driver, Canadian racer, been involved in sim racing for a little while now, seen him in a few high-profile SRO badged competitions, but we've not really seen him this much in the mix in recent races, and he's absolutely hounding the back of that Naujox BMW. The very little Alpine, not quite got as many horses under the hood, but it seems to be working for him in these conditions. He looks to the inside, no room there from Naujox, closes the line, but Michael Kundakcioglu seems to have speed over the BMW at this stage, but has he got enough grunt to get alongside that German machine?
If you're struggling with Kundakcioglu, you can also refer to him as Michael White, for that is his stage name within the band Honeymoon Bay, for whom he's a musician when he's not doing sim racing. But Michael Kundakcioglu in the Alpine having a good battle with Niels Naujox. Alex Buncombe in the meantime is trying to recover from that tiny error down at Club Corner a couple of laps back. He's right on the tail of Bobby Trundley, closing at the end of Vale, and Trundley goes a little bit deep towards Club Corner there. Is that going to be Buncombe's advantage? It is. He's got the inside line. Has he got the drive off the corner as the car's twitch? Yes, he goes through on the inside. Good past that. So he applied the pressure. Little bit of a slip by Bobby Trundley at the end of Vale. Door opened and Alex Buncombe goes through, and he's back up into 4th place overall.
Fantastic overtaking manoeuvre as this fight continues. Baldwin at the front of the field, still flying high with purple sectors. He's got nobody in front of him, a clear track, so he's making hay while, so to speak, the sun does not shine on this occasion. And this fight for GT4 continues. Kundakcioglu can get the car turned in so much easier than that BMW. It's such a stiffly strung little car as that Alpine A110, and Kundakcioglu using it to good effect so far in these conditions. A little bit further back, Tariq Gamel going off the racing line, keeping his wet tyres nice and cool in the Porsche 718, trying to buy into this fight, but Niels Naujox under all of the pressure in the world.
Whereas in GT3, Baldwin continues to set fastest laps and therefore continues to pull away from Angus Fender, as now Tariq Gamil is closing on Kundakcioglu, who in turn is up with Niels Naujox.
And we're just hearing, David, in our ear that Niels Naujox is 1.2 seconds per lap at this stage in the race, slower than class leader in GT4. Obviously, he's carrying 30 kilos of success ballast, courtesy of his win last time out of Brands Hatch. And he's also involved in a fight that Tariq Gamel is now very much signed up to. So Naujox needing to find a little bit more speed at the back of the sofa if he has a rummage around.
Absolutely right, and that GT4 leader, incidentally, is Jack McIntyre. Florian Hasser is second, and a very good debut, ballast free, I'll grant you, is coming from the KTM of Pierre-Olivier Cloutier, because he's running 3rd in class right now.
Yep, superb actually performance in the KTM, which we've not really seen too far at the sharp end of the field during the course of the season. So absolutely phenomenal first race of this campaign for Cloutier in 3rd position. Great credit where credit's due. Great drive, and Cock, another new driver, in 15th place, so 4th overall in class. So our newbies doing very, very well.
As there for the pit lane goes the Alpine of Kundakcioglu. Now that might well be a gremlin for him on the system rather than a pit stop for problems, because the pit window is not yet open, has it? So is that a connectivity issue, or is that, I can't imagine it's damage he's gone to sort out. But Kundakcioglu showed us going into the pits. We saw him drive down the pits. What do we read into that, Paul?
Yeah, that is a curious move, and just to clarify for folks at home, it is a mandatory pit stop, but it is a mandatory pit window. So what has to happen is, on the top of your screen where you see the time, so it's 45 minutes and 32 seconds remaining, it will say when the pit window is open. It will last for 10 minutes, and there the drivers must make a pit stop. Kundakcioglu's gone down pit lane outside of that pit window, so he still has to make another stop. Quite why he would have done that, I can't imagine, David. A strategic reason, throwing a new set of boots on the car. Yes, it'll give you a little bit of lap time, but not enough to close down the gap it takes, as we're seeing now. Naujox under pressure, but covers from Tariq Gamel, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, needs to keep an eye to that, see whether he is back in the race and indeed whether there was any damage. I don't think it was a penalty, was it? We'll have to double check that, but I don't remember seeing anything on the screen to suggest there had been a penalty for him. Niels Naujoks, if things stay as they are, will still lead the championship going to Donington Park and, crucially, would shed ballast. You only get ballast if you are in the top 3 in the race, not the championship, but in the race. So he would lose ballast, and Jack McIntyre, were he to win it, would cop for the full 30 kilos around a rather hilly circuit. Donington's got its rises and falls. Naujoks right now, though, is under attack once again. Tarek Gamil has caught. He's managed to gain a place at the expense of the pitting Alpine, and so now Tarek Gamil is right there on the back of Niels Naujoks as they come through Aintree.
I love your optimism. If things stay as they are, with 44 minutes left on the clock, that is very, very unlikely in the extreme. As Sandy Mitchell now, great on-board camera that we're riding the GT3 Lamborghini, currently in 3rd position. Angus Fender doing a good job to resist the pressure in 2nd place as James Baldwin just clocks out. He's basically he's in round 5 already. Is James Baldwin is that far up the road?
Yeah, pretty much. We could do the interview now. No, that's unfair because anything could happen. He might get caught up behind the traffic. So there's Tarek Gamil coming through, still chasing after Niels Naujoks. This is for 17th and 18th overall. GT4 BMW versus Porsche. Tarek, remember, qualified on pole at Brands Hatch, but then couldn't really carry on that pace in the race itself, whereas Niels Naujoks, if I say he's in a damage limitation mode, that's a little bit unfair, Paul, but really all he can do here with the heavier car, without the outright pace, is just bank the points he can.
Yeah, and that's exactly what makes a champion, isn't it, David? Is just achieving what is achievable at any given time, dealing with the conditions and the cards as they dealt to you, and not trying to overreach yourself and find a second in the car that doesn't exist and throw it into the Armco. As Gamil now in the slipstream, lining up for the overtake.
Is he going to have a go at Stowe Corner? Yes, he is. Goes to the inside line there, but he's offline to make the pass, so it's going to be a little bit more slippery when he has to brake. Gets up the inside of Niels Naujoks, who stays on the outside line where there might be a bit more grip. He gets run out wide over the curb. He'll have the inside line for the end of Vale, but it doesn't matter. Gamil has done it. He's made it stick, and so Porsche is ahead of BMW at the end of Vale. Tarek Gamil goes through, gains a place as we look back from Fender's BMW. That's Sandy Mitchell behind.
Yeah, great overtaking move from Tarek Gamil. Naujoks rolling off the brakes, trying to keep the momentum around the outside, as we're seeing now. Fender again in the heart of the GT4 traffic, so some of the lower runners in GT4 starting to get gobbled up by the GT3 machines, and these are critical times. We're only 7 minutes or so away from the pit window opening for the cars to make the mandatory stop. Trying to find a little bit of real estate, David, is going to be very difficult. It's a big circuit. We've not got a huge grid here today, but still trying to find clear track to be able to maximise the lap time of your car. Easier said than done.
Yeah, you could argue it's harder for the GT3 cars because they are going to be released into GT4 traffic. GT4 could be released to the back of GT4, but there isn't the same speed differential for them to worry about. Sandy Mitchell, though, in the meantime, having a good run here, isn't he? As he charges along. Sandy, who was with Rob Collard, the British GT champion last year, the best he's had out of the round so far, a couple of 6th places, but right now he's going for 2nd place in the race. He's caught up to Angus Fender, and this is a great battle. James Baldwin is away and gone up front, but Angus Fender now is once again having to make that car very wide indeed, and not that far behind them is the recovering Alex Buncombe, and he's taking Bobby Trundley with him.
Yeah, fantastic. This little battle pack has continued to remain close throughout the course of the first 20 minutes, and Mitchell, it should not be underestimated how good the job he's doing aboard that Lamborghini. A very twitchy car at the best of times, not the best suited to wet weather. Good around Silverstone, but in damp conditions like we have now, that will be a handful. Will that Lamborghini? He's suffering a face full of spray from Angus Fender, and although the ultimate speed is lower than dry conditions, he's still getting the dirty air wash from the back of that BMW, which is taking downforce away from the front of the Lamborghini. So Mitchell doing an heroic job, I would say, in 3rd place so far, and actually looks like he's got more speed than Angus Fender ahead. So Mitchell trying, look at the body language of the Lamborghini, trying to find a way past as they thread the needle through GT4. Wow, that was close.
Hot Laps qualifier Joe Brown, one of the Ginetta drivers, suddenly has the faster traffic descend upon him. All of this helping, of course, James Baldwin to build that gap. More purple sectors being posted. He's now very nearly 9 seconds clear of this fight for 2nd place, and Sandy Mitchell there carrying more speed into Stowe Corner. So the Lamborghini really looking very, very sure-footed right now. Angus Fender's BMW hangs on to 2nd place. and they're not that far away from the pit stops. Not only that, Alex Buncombe is not that far away from Mitchell. The Buncombe recovery continues here, and it's a good recovery. He's almost with the Barwell Lamborghini. The Century BMW, though, hangs on to second place, and this is Sandy Mitchell's view. Running third, Angus Fender ahead of him in that BMW.
Now, Sandy Mitchell has got to look out for not making the Buncombe mistake of being the faster car behind Angus Fender, but either making the mistake or putting an overtaking manoeuvre on that's never really going to happen, because then it's door open and Buncombe and Trundle are going to walk straight through, and then suddenly Sandy Mitchell is trying in the middle of a recovery drive as he gets a little bit of a run out of the left-hander, but the BMW does a great job of putting the power down to the road, and the initial takeoff from the corner is just so much stronger than that Lamborghini.
And now there's the traffic as well. Look, as they come down towards Brooklands this time. So through on the inside line there goes Angus Fender, but Sandy Mitchell looking ever more committed to all of this. Now, where does he go? The outside line at Luffield will have more grip, but Sandy tries to tighten the line for the inside, the obvious line for Woodcote Corner. Angus Fender, I suspect, is going to be very wise to that and defend. But also, not only is Sandy Mitchell trying to attack, he's also got to defend. And look, coming out of Woodcote, the BMW steals back another couple of lengths, and Sandy Mitchell has to now go into defend mode because Alex Buncombe is right there, shortening the run through Cox by taking a little bit more curb on the inside line. So now the complexion changes, doesn't it? It's the fight for third. Mitchell versus Buncombe, Lamborghini versus McLaren.
Yeah, this is fabulous racing. It's really difficult in these conditions, in the wet conditions, the reduced grip, to race so close to each other. Buncombe's getting a good run through the Beckett's complex, the Lamborghini good off the corner, the BMW better still at the front of this little chain of cars, and that's going to give heart to Angus Fender to know that he can get off the corner better than the cars behind him. Gives him the advantage down the following straights and into the next braking zone, which is a little bit more comfortable. But Sandy Mitchell, so good in the middle of the corner, all over the BMW again.
Down to the end of Vale, has a look on the inside line there, gets a face full of Fender, so he's not going to get by there. The really canny one here, you could argue, is Bobby Trundley, waiting for it to end in tears ahead of him, because right now you've got three very, very good GT drivers, three big reputations, all going for it here. And at the back of the group is Alex Buncombe running fourth. Ahead of him is Sandy Mitchell. Angus Fender hanging on to second place. I hesitate to say he's the cork in the bottle, but it makes you wonder, were they to be able to wriggle past the BMW, what they could do about narrowing the margin to James Baldwin. There's traffic as well. Look, as through on the inside goes the BM, and Sandy Mitchell tags the Audi. Around it has gone. Buncombe went out wide in evasive action, very nearly loses a place to Bobby Trundley, but Sandy Mitchell will have picked up damage there, won't he?
He will indeed, and that was Florian Hasser, I think it was, in the Audi that got involved in that incident, and that's opened the door now for Buncombe to have an attack on Sandy Mitchell. Off down the straight, Mitchell a little bit too far, Buncombe a little bit too far away from the back of the Lamborghini, but this is exactly, David, what we spoke about at the top of the show. Traffic, conditions, visibility, opportunities aplenty.
Absolutely right. So Mitchell then, possibly with a little bit of damage, a tweaked front left corner, now has got Buncombe right up behind him. And of course, the one that got out of jail free, if you like, Angus Fender, because he's been able to build that gap quite nicely now. Others delayed, having to take evasive action. So there, very definitely, it's fight on for third. Fender for the moment doesn't have to worry, and look, Buncombe now gets up alongside and heading up towards Maggots. He's going to have the outside for the kink, but it'll be the inside for the first part of the Beckett's S's. Job done. Through goes Alex Buncombe.
Very, very nice, and exactly what Alex Buncombe needed to do is make a move while Mitchell is still getting acquainted with how his car's behaving after that little bit of contact, and Trundley also staying close to the two ahead of him. But now, David, let's see how much pace Buncombe's got by how quickly he can close to the back of the BMW of Angus Fender in second.
And this might also piece together what happened at Village. So that was Angus Fender going through, and yeah, it wasn't deliberate on Sandy Mitchell's part, was it? The Audi turned in, he was committed to the line, and they just met in the middle. But the Audi of, as you suggested, it might have been Samir Ibrahimi, the one that came off worse, that was tagged into the spin. So there is Alex Buncombe then, now going after Angus Fender. Just in case you were wondering, James Baldwin is in the race still. He is light years ahead, now over 10 seconds, and he's a very, very dominant race leader indeed. That's his car, just to remind you what it looks like, because we've been focusing understandably on this great battle for second place. Niels Naujoks goes a lap down. Look, Bobby Trundley comes up to have a go at Sandy Mitchell, who almost nibbles the back of the Naujoks BM there, doesn't he?
Oh, that was close. I had to take an intake of breath. It's too wide going to Naujok's as a sandwich between the GT3 cars. Trundley wisely realises he's going to run out of real estate to make it past on the tarmac. Naujok's bails and gets completely off the racetrack to allow the faster GT3s, but that is as close as you're going to get to having an accident without actually having the accident. Very tense times for Nils Naujok's, and his eyes will be like dustbin lids in that BMW. Wow.
Bobby Trundley presses on in his Aston, but he's under attack now from Tom Canning, and pit window open. Bobby Trundley comes in early to get that out of the way. Could be a shrewd move, and lots of others pour in, including Tarek Gamil, look, in GT4. So this now is going to really shuffle the order. To remind you what else is happening in GT4, Jack McIntyre is the class leader, and a drive-through for Sandy Mitchell. So a drive-through penalty for Sandy Mitchell for the incident against Samir Ibrahimi. Oh, you could argue that's harsh, but that's what the race officials have decided. So poor old Sandy Mitchell cops a drive-through, Paul.
Yeah, that's a real shame, and as you say, it's very much on the harsh side of things. But of course, Mitchell and Ibrahimi, two different classes of cars making contact. These things do happen in wet conditions, but they shouldn't do so. Sandy Mitchell, drive-through penalty, that's going to cost him. And of course, he still needs to go down pit road for his mandatory stop. So get ready pit lane to see twice the Sandy Mitchell Lamborghini in the next 10 minutes.
So there, Ben Green, now he is running 6th on the road. He might gain, of course, with the extra pit stop, as Paul has just explained, because you've got your regulation stop as well as the penalty pit stop, and a stop go of 20 seconds for Robbie Stapleford as well. So that's possibly for track limit abuse as Nils Naujok's battles on.
Yeah, that's a shame for Stapleford for the 20-second stop go. That is your day done and dusted, isn't it?
Pretty much, yes, unless you were to have a safety car or something to bring them all back, but that is not going to happen, I don't believe. There is Bobby Trundley. Now he, has served his mandatory stop and has been released back into the traffic, so he's going to do it all over again. The stop go 30 seconds, that's for pit lane speeding. In fact, that's automatically set by the game, so it's a 30-second stop go for speeding in the pit lane, Robbie Stapleford, just to confirm that. Right, there's Naujok's, still banking points, isn't he, even if the pace ain't great.
Well, unless I'm mistaken, David, is there a little bit of damage at the front of the BMW of Nils Naujok's? Looks like he's carrying a little bit of damage at the front end, which will of course affect his downforce, and downforce is very much your friend in wet conditions. So maybe that explains a little bit where that 1.2 second deficit to the class leader is with the Nils Naujok's BMW.
Yeah, he might have got caught up in all the dramas at Copse on the first lap. Now, the GT4 leader, Jack McIntyre, has pitted. Fingers crossed it's going to be better than normal. Into the pits, the drive-through, one hopes, is Sandy Mitchell. And while that's going on, Buncombe is on the tail of Fender. So it didn't take him long to catch up at all, did it? Sandy Mitchell drops down the order while he serves one of his pit stops. But then he's got to do it all over again. Right, this is Niels Koch, who is being overtaken by GT3 traffic, and he's also trying to get past the KTM of Cloutier. These two have battled against each other since the start of the race.
Yeah, they've been superb, these two new drivers. Remember, for everybody at home, if you want to be part of this series, you can join it by hot lap qualification. It'll open tomorrow at 8 AM BST for the final round at Donington Park in 2 weeks. And that's exactly what these drivers have done. They've set hot lap times, hot stint times, in Assetto Corsa Competizione. They've become part of the fastest group, and here we are, being commentated over by the legendary voice of Paul Jeffrey and also David Addison. Here at Silverstone.
2 out of 3 is not bad. Right, Alex Buncombe then, right on the back of Angus Fender. The traffic gets out of the way as they come past the Formula 1 pits, past the wing. Meanwhile, what's going on at the Beckett's S's? Nils Naujok's is there. There's Bobby Trundley after his stop. And you've got the Morgan Short car going through as well. So Trundley, after his pit stop, is the best of the stoppers. If it's got the green colouring in the fifth column across, that means they made a pit stop. If it's got one, then it means they have one to make, as Buncombe is still stuck behind Angus Fender. You've got to hand it to Angus. He's done a really resolute job of defending. Doesn't matter who's challenged him, that BMW is not giving up its second place.
No, he's doing superb, is Angus Fender. We've not seen him make a single mistake, not snatched a break, not run wide anywhere of particular note. And exactly what he needs to do in the BMW is retain that second position, ideally first. But James Bolden, as you say, is well up the road now as Alex Buncombe. Will he dive down pit lane? Wow, that's a late decision. Over the grass, good catch on pit road as Alex Buncombe decides last moment to get down pit road, serve his mandatory stop and see if he can undercut the BMW of Fender.
So in comes Buncombe. Thought from the pits is that the newcomer Andreas Schwerin may well have taken on tyres, because his was a stop almost double the length of other drivers, so it would make sense. We'll try and find out about Jack McIntyre's stop, because he's struggled in the pit stops hitherto, and it would be a shame if he were to lose the class lead this time around. So we've got Sandy Mitchell with that drive through down the order. There is Samir Abrami, who was tagged into that spin, so he in turn is rather badly delayed. This time it's a good Jack McIntyre stop, 32 seconds, so that's looking good to retain the class lead, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great to see for Jack McIntyre. It's so frustrating as a driver when you do all the work and it goes wrong. Something as mundane as a pit stop. So great news for Jack Mack. Currently, well, not currently race leader on track, but will be class leader when all the stops have washed themselves out.
And he's a prolific sim racer, isn't he? Whether it's in GT cars, in touring cars, single driver events, or with a co-driver, a teammate. There is Niels Naujoks then. He's done his stop. The order shuffling around within GT4 at the moment. So you notice that ahead of him on the road, back in the race, is Michael Kundacioğlu, despite his earlier pit stop outside the window. Tom Canning here is ahead of Bobby Trundley. So on the pit stops, Canning has got ahead.
Yep, Canning doing a great job there actually, and Trundley as well, still not putting a wheel wrong is Trundley, under pressure now with the Aston Martin ahead. Trundley goes to the outside, there'll be no line there, but we have got a GT4 Porsche just holding these two Aston Martins up, and Trundley nipping at the back of Tom Canning's blue Aston Martin. He wants that provisional podium position, doesn't he?
Very definitely, and I think that Porsche up the road is Jack McIntyre, isn't it? As Trundley now lines up, yes, past Jack Mack they go into Abbey then now through the first corner on the Grand Prix circuit. If you use the wing pits up through Farm on towards Village, heavy braking zone this. Bobby Trundley goes to the outside line, but he's not going to get through there, and look what is catching them. Ben Green's BMW looking very, very racy all of a sudden. That car seemingly better in this second stint as the two Astons oh so nearly make contact, but this will be a three-way fight very shortly. Ben Green, there's the BMW in the background, and as they come onto Wellington Straight, he's almost with them.
Yep, Trundley has got to find a way past now, because Tom Canning does not have the pace of that Aston Martin. Shows his nose to the inside. Canning goes defensive. Ben Green will soon be all over the back of these two Astons, and Trundley needs to act very, very quickly, because of course, while this is happening, he also wants to close the gap to Fender ahead, who's been down pit road now, David, and returns potentially in second position.
Stop-go penalty of 30 seconds for Jack Lemmer, which I fear, again, is for pit lane speeding. Of course, that would never happen in the real world. His dad, Mark Lemmer, would not permit that. Angus Fender goes through Beckett's then and has now fallen back, has he, behind the Alex Buncombe McLaren as a result of the pit stops. So on the stops, Alex Buncombe goes ahead of Angus Fender. So the order shuffles for second place. Fender's stop was 36 seconds. Buncombe was 34. And it was, just to confirm, pit lane speeding for Jack Lemmer. But a quicker pit stop gives Buncombe second place.
And that, on Angus Fender's behalf, is heartbreaking, because Fenders we spoke about just a few moments ago not put a wheel wrong, but has been outfoxed in strategy by Buncombe. And now let's see if Angus Fender has got a little bit more pace in that BMW to close up to the back of the McLaren, because don't forget, Buncombe for the entirety of this race, for over half of the race distance, has been following in the wheel tracks of another car. Now he's got clean air. That changes your rhythm as a driver, doesn't it, David? And it's very easy to accidentally walk yourself into a mistake.
Absolutely so. And of course, Alex Buncombe is also now having to do what he needs, which is to protect James Baldwin, who now comes into the pit lane. So James Baldwin pits. He should, of course, be able to maintain that race lead as the two Astons get themselves together again, and Ben Green makes a mistake at Village and goes deep into the corner. So Trundley all over the back of Canning. Ben Green trying to recover, trying to bring down that gap once again and get up with them as Baldwin, race leader, serves his mandatory pit stop now.
And Baldwin has enough time to get out and have a cup of tea. There's such is an advantage at the front of the field, but Baldwin will walk back out into race lead quite comfortably. Buncombe and Fender is still advantage Alex Buncombe by just over a second now, and Bobby Trundley, despite showing more pace at this stage in the race at the least to Tom Cannon ahead. Still can't find a way past, but he'll be grateful that the Ben Green this has been a bit of a yo-yo, the Ben Green BMW, fast and then not so fast. So Trunley need to take advantage while the going is good.
There's another pit lane speeding penalty of a stop-go 32nd for Niels Koch. That means it's another place that Niels Naujoks can gain. Have a guess who made the fastest GT3 pit stop. You're right, yes, James Baldwin. Well guessed, everybody. 32 seconds. So not only is he the quickest guy on the track, he's the quickest guy in the pit lane as well.
When it all goes well, doesn't it? All the cards fall in your favour when the luck is in, and it's not luck. James Baldwin, incredibly fast driver, prestigious, does plenty of practice and preparation, and now is his reward. With 24 minutes and 51 seconds left on the clock, Baldwin has an incredible 16.5 second lead, but let's see what Buncombe can do.
We also need to start looking at championship permutations into this second stint as well, because Angus Fender's result is going to determine to a degree whether we crown a champion here or at Donington in the final round. Hopefully it will go down to the wire, but we'll double check as the drivers then accelerate their way up through Club Corner, looking on board with Bobby Trundley. Just to confirm, we've lost from the race now Jack Lemmer, again sad to say Gus Burton, Deegan Fairclough and Moritz Lerner. They are the 4 retirements, as James Baldwin then holds sway, and Tom Canning, having jumped ahead of Bobby Trundley on the pit stops, is staying ahead of him.
Yeah, he's doing a good job, is Tom Canning. Doesn't quite have, as we've said already, the pace at this stage in the race at the least of Bobby Trundley in the sister Aston Martin, but he's doing everything right. In the rain, we spoke about this at length before, but it's worth repeating. These are dry line, or a relatively dry line, shall we say, in comparison to the rest of the racetrack. Go off from that one, you've got limited grip, as we see Robbie Stapleford in the GT4 Chevrolet at the side of the racetrack just recovering once again. So when you've got limited grip off the racing line, it makes it incredibly difficult to overtake. It's harder to slow the car, it's harder to turn it in, it's harder to accelerate. If the car ahead of you doesn't make a mistake, you've got to be significantly faster and more committed than your rival. And at this level, David, with these drivers, there is not really that kind of disparity between drivers in class to give you that kind of advantage, is there?
No, you're right. So it adds to the drama in these conditions, even in match cars as well. And just to confirm that the point situation in GT4 is that will go to the wire, but GT3, if things stay as they are with Fender third and Baldwin leading, James Baldwin will be the champion. So now he's just got to not make mistakes, not get caught up in the dramas, as there, look, Cloutier battles out of Luffield with Niels Koch behind him, but don't forget that Koch has got to serve that stop-go penalty. Cloutier has just done the hard yards of overtaking in the KTM, but from Niels Koch's point of view, he's still got to come in and serve the rather draconian stop-go 30-second penalty for pit lane speeding.
Don't these two seem like experienced drivers in this championship? You would not believe this is their first venture into the British GT Esports Series. Fantastic performance, penalty aside, for both those drivers, Cloutier and Koch, in 13th and 14th overall so far in the big money points in GT4. Fabulous driving.
What I like is the fact that you can have the Camaro up against the KTM. I mean, the way the BOP works, like you said at the start, two greater disparities in a sense you could not wish for, but the little KTM dwarfed by the Chevrolet Camaro there, down Hanger Straight, and actually the KTM, even in a straight line, has got enough just to stay ahead. So through Stowe Corner they tiptoe in these treacherous conditions. Great little battle this. Sadly, it's for nothing in a sense, because Koch has to serve that penalty and really ought to get it done, because if while he's battling he makes contact with the KTM, well, it's all for nothing anyway, and he could spoil somebody's race. So get the penalty done, carry on battling. One assumes he knows about the penalty. As you see there, Bobby Trundley going a bit deep into Luffield, just over 20 minutes to go, and that's cost him a fraction of time.
And Trundley's moving around a lot behind the back of Cannon ahead. He needs to be a little bit careful, because that's going to start heating or overheating the wet tyres on that Aston Martin. And it's very, very easy, believe it or not, in wet conditions to overheat wet tyres. Once you've got it outside of the optimum temperature range for these tyres, it's difficult to get them back under control again. You start losing grip, you're sliding more, thus you're putting more heat into your tyres, and it becomes a spiral that starts to lose significant amounts of lap time. So Trundle needs to be a little bit careful to temper his enthusiasm and not overwork the car. You can see, you can smell, you can taste a podium position ahead of him, but he needs to be a little bit more circumspect in his driving at this stage at least.
As far as GT4 is concerned, crude maths would suggest that if Niels Naujock stays 5th, he'll have 65 points going to Donington. If Jack McIntyre hangs on to the class lead, he will have 57, so that's going to be a really good fight into the last round. Niels Koch has now come into the pit lane to serve the stop-go penalty, and another incident you can see on the screen involving Gabriel Lefrene and also Robbie Stapleford, a drive through for Lefrene, the Ginetta driver, another of the Hot Laps qualifiers. So actually the race control team have been relatively calm in this race. We haven't had quite the same number of penalties being levied as we did, for example, at Oulton Park, where it was mayhem, but with a smaller entry and the drivers perhaps being a bit more cautious in the wet conditions, we haven't had too many incidents. That was Lefrene you just saw. Still, Canning keeps Trundle at bay. Very, very evenly matched, these two Astons, aren't they?
Yeah, they're the fight of the race so far with 19.5 minutes left on the clock. But just a quick thought, that with Koch coming down pit lane, that's another position on track for Niels Naujock. So that's another vital handful of points in his championship challenge. And as you said, David, earlier in the show, it's pretty much a case of damage limitation for these drivers, for Niels Naujock in the BMW, and that's 3 points. That is all the kind of manoeuvres and the kind of situations that a champion does make. So let's see where Naujock comes out. But here's a curious one for you. I'm seeing that Florian Hasse and Liam Neely don't have the green marker next to the name, which suggests they've not taken their mandatory start.
Yes, you're right, and therefore they should get a time penalty at the end of the race. So that'll be another place gained within GT4 for Niels Naujock, won't it? You take Florian Hasse out of the equation. So I'm not sure why they haven't done the mandatory stop. It's not like you forget, surely, because you know you've got to do it. But anyway, that's the situation. So
drivers such as Florian Hasse as well, very experienced sim racer, not inexperienced in the world of SRO eSport competition, so I'm not sure what happened there.
And what's going on here is the Stapleford Lefrene incident. Angus Fender gets up past them, and that was the reason that Lefrene copped a drive-through penalty. That was fairly brutal, wasn't it, in getting rid of Robbie Stapleford?
That's one way to do it, certainly. Lefrene, obviously new to the multi-class world, first race in this particular series, saw a faster GT3 car, probably spent more time concentrating on the GT3 and less on the fellow GT4 runner, and sadly there's only a limited amount of tarmac at Silverstone, believe it or not, and they ran out of it.
Now, what else is going on in the classes right now? Jack McIntyre looking good in GT4, as we say, well clear of Florian Hasse, who is going to cop a penalty for not stopping. So Jack McIntyre's advantage is, in real terms, an even greater one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great performance from Jack McIntyre. He's been exactly what a racing driver wants to be. You don't notice him. You don't want to talk about him. You don't want to look at him on screen because he's doing nothing interesting apart from getting the job done. Lapping, making no mistakes, keeping it clean. And this is just what Jack McIntyre needed to keep the championship alive heading to Donington Park. But with the various penalties and the Florian Hasse issue, he'll receive, I believe it's a 130-second penalty at the end of the race for not serving his mandatory stop. So that's going to move Naujock up in a P4 even, as things stand. So McIntyre doing everything he can, but the cards are not quite falling for him further down the running order.
Well, he can only do what he can do here, which is to, and he is, dominate the class. He will take the points, hooray. He'll also take the weight, won't he, going into Donington, as here Bobby Trundle is just dropping back a little from Tom Canning. We're also just trying to double check that these drivers haven't stopped and that the timing tower hasn't updated, so we'll just keep an eye on that. But on track for what is 4th and 5th overall. Interesting that a few laps back we talked about Ben Green being up with them. He's fallen a long way back in the BMW. That's hardly been a factor tonight, Ben Green's car. Sandy Mitchell's 7th after his 2 stops. Again, a case of what might have been for the Flying Scotsman. But it's interesting to see that the Ben Green BMW, like I say, Paul, has dropped away so markedly.
It has. A significant amount of time is dropped actually in the last few laps, and that seems to be a behaviour that's been mirrored by Angus Fender's BMW in third place as well. The Fender-Buncombe swap of positions during the pit window. Fender is now nearly 6 seconds in arrears of the McLaren, so maybe BMW struggling a little bit at this stage in the race in these conditions after a good 45 minutes of racing.
The BMW has been very, very strong at every other circuit, and of course one of the things you can do in sim racing that you can't in the real world is drive somebody else's car, so you can experience what the opposition's car is like around a circuit and get that data, get that knowledge to perhaps feed into your own, can't you? You can, if you so desire, log onto the game and experience a different car, work out the strengths of that and work out what you need to do to yours to combat it. Right now, Tom Canning having a great drive in that 4th place. He's on target for much his best of the season. This is Florian Hasse versus Tariq Gamil. They are on the road, 2nd and 3rd in GT4. So this is a proper battle.
Oh, this isn't. Gamel getting very squirrely under the brakes. Has to take evasive action as Hasser aggressively shuts the inside door. But Gamel, remember, pole position in his first race, but fell like a stone last time out, having a much better weekend here at Silverstone. Qualified a bit lower as he assaults a cone that flies over the top of the Porsche. And Tariq Gamel got plenty of pace in that little Porsche, and Florian Hasse will probably be perturbed about his dashboard telling him that he's not made a stop, if indeed he actually has. So Tariq Gamel, the man with the pace at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's good to see the way the Porsche is doing here, what it didn't do at Brands Hatch, really. So we could be on for a Porsche 1-2 if Tariq Gamil can find a way past Florian Hasse. The timing tower, as you see, suggests that he has not made that stop, Florian Hasse, but race controller checking on that, because it might be a gremlin in the system as you look at Trundley on the back of Canning once more. We've lost Morgan Short from the race as well. Sadly, he has been disconnected. So Morgan, who's also been very rapid with a couple of 4ths in the McLaren in GT3, is out of the race as well. Trundley fires out a club corner. Tom Canning just up the road ahead, but these two having a great fight. The two Aston Martins then round Abbey. Speed builds all the time through this very, very quick section, and then really heavy braking now coming up towards Village.
Yeah, they've been fighting. Fantastic racing from both of them. Really nose-to-tail racing at parts of this racetrack in the last 10 minutes or so. And again, credit to them. I can't overstate this enough. The difficulty of racing in a virtual environment so close together. Both drivers pushing to their absolute limit and their car's absolute limit. Jostling for position is fantastic to see. And of course, both of them real-world drivers, so this is not their natural environment, and they're putting on a great show for the fans, just like this guy, Tariq Gamel, all over the back of the McLaren.
Absolutely, he could not be closer, could he, as they come onto Hanger Straight. Tariq Gamil all over Florian Hasse like a fat pigeon on a chip. Down towards Stowe Corner they come. Porsche looks to the inside line, but again, the problem is you've got to go offline to do the overtaking. It's a bit more greasy there. So it actually looks worse on the outside than the inside, doesn't it? Tariq Gamil fights the 718 Cayman out of Stowe, down Vale, and then towards Club Corner, where if he gets the tighter line for the right-hander itself, that long double apex right, he might be able to get up the inside of the McLaren. Let's see. First apex done. Here's the second. Aim for the clipping point. Up the curb now, but no, Hasse fends him off, but then he goes a little bit wide. Traffic gets out of the way. Tariq Gamil still can't quite get up alongside, but they are nose to tail.
And they'll be loving this fight. Tariq Gamil, a pure racer at heart, will be enjoying every second of this battle, just coming off the throttle, not to make contact with the back of the McLaren. At the moment, Gamil in the Porsche is faster in awkward positions and having to come away from the gas to avoid making contact with Florian Hasse. Tries to cut back to the inside, doesn't quite have enough of an overlap on the McLaren, but maybe Hasse playing games a little bit with Gamil, just slowing him down in certain parts of the racetrack. But this is a monumental fight between these two, and they've only got 11 minutes and 40 seconds to conclude it, David.
And look who is bearing down on them, the race leader, champion-elect James Baldwin. Now this is exactly what we referred to earlier about encountering traffic, being cautious, because these two are having a battle for second in class, and James Baldwin is on the outside line. Let's hope they've seen him. He's got past Tariq Gamil. He's going to go around the outside of Florian Hasse coming through Woodcote. That puts him in a bit of jeopardy on the outside line, but he's done it, has he? He's gone by. Yes, James Baldwin goes through. Whew, everybody breathes a massive sigh of relief. So James Baldwin laps the battle for second in GT4, which is still Hasse ahead of Gamel.
Yeah, that was brave stuff from James Baldwin, very much in the line of fire. Should anything go wrong with these two drivers, pulled it off to perfection in the end, but taking more chance than maybe is necessary with a 17-second advantage, as now we see the two Aston Martins trying to merge into the GT4 Audi, but get their way through, and Bobby Trundley still on the attack to Tom Canning, goes to the inside, shows his nose, cools his tyres as well for the run down in the Cops, and Canning is doing a phenomenal job, clearly the slower of the two cars at this stage, but once again putting his car in exactly the right position at exactly the right time.
And Tariq Gamil is still crawling all over the Florian Hasse-driven McLaren. Trundley is still all over the back of Canning. The clock ticks on down. We're almost into the last 10 minutes of the race. And in fact, those Aston Martins are not that far in the real world behind this GT4 battle, are they? They are the GT4 cars that you see coming towards Abbey. Into Stowe come the Aston Martins. So they're going to have to lap these two before the end of the race.
And meanwhile, while everybody's fighting tooth and nail, James Baldwin has spent the last 45 minutes practicing his speech to you, David, when the checkered flag waves. So I expect something both amusing and engaging from James Baldwin, because that's basically all he's had to think about all race long. Such has been his domination.
Ah, yes, but you see, it's all down to the questions posed, so he's on a hiding to nothing. They're not going to be very inspired. The McLaren look just edging away ever so slightly, but Tariq Gamil really is on his toes. He's good on the brakes as well. Let's see as they come down towards Brooklands. He goes to the inside line, more in hope than in anticipation, I think, but applying the pressure to Florian Hasse, trying to get that mistake out of him.
And the thing for Tariq Gamil as well is a relatively late joiner into the championship, so he's not really got anything noteworthy or substantial to fight for championship position wise. It's all about the individual race performance, just having a fun race, scoring a big result, getting onto the virtual podium, so to speak. So Gamil's got nothing to lose by attacking this race. He's already proven his worth. He wants to liberate that position from Florian Hasse, who himself is in a very similar position. It's all about the result today and getting that ticket to the championship finale in a fortnight's time at Donington Park.
Florian Hasse, who was fourth last season with the AM Championship that the SRO Esports Series ran. He had a win at Barcelona. He's also done the ADAC GT Esports Championship. He's raced in the WTCR Esports Championship as well. So very, very experienced driver he is. So too is Tariq Gamil. And the overall order remains Baldwin from Buncombe, from Fender, then Canning, Trundley and Green. Sandy Mitchell 7th. Liam McNeely is 8th with his pit stop being looked at. As you see there, Gamil getting up alongside Hasse coming out of Stowe. Jack McIntyre is 9th overall, and this is the fight for 10th overall, second in class, with Alex Buncombe 2nd overall, trying to get between them. Hasse gets it all wrong at the end of Vale, trying to get out of the way of Buncombe, I think. And does that help Tariq Gamil? It does not. Buncombe brave as well round the outside. Anything Baldwin can do, so can he. But look at Gamil's pace. Very quick out of club, fires the car at the apex, and suddenly got a face full of the McLaren.
Yep, Gamil trying every trick in the book. There's no room through Abbey and into Farm. It's a very difficult part of racetrack for an overtake, but Gamil going to try and stay on the back of Florian Hasse. Hasse knows what's happening, covers the inside line. Gamil goes to the outside, better on the brakes. The outside will become the inside for the loop, but there's not enough real estate to get the Porsche 718 alongside Florian Hasse ahead. And Hasse, a masterclass. He's showing exactly where to put the car to avoid a faster rival overtaking. That's a great piece of driving from Florian Hasse.
Mega battle this. We did rather predict that the drama would come from GT4. Well, here it is. Behind them now is Angus Fender. You can see what a huge amount of time Angus has lost in the second stint, can't you, relative to the McLarens, bearing in mind he was ahead of Alex Buncombe before the pit stops. But the BMW really has not had the pace in the race, despite his good effort in the first stint. Here comes Hasse then versus Tariq Gamil. We've got 6 3/4 minutes to go. This fight will go down to the wire. James Baldwin is set for yet another outright win, and of course to win the championship in GT3 as the GT4 fight dives into Copse Corner.
And Sandy Mitchell is a GT3 driver that's fallen further down the running order than we saw earlier. P7 for the Lamborghinis with 3 wide heading into Beckett's. The GT3 on the inside clears the gap, and once again Hasse and Tariq Gamil must be looking left, right, up, down, forwards, backwards. There's cars coming every which way but loose. Tariq Gamil will be adoring this fight.
He will, as long as he wins in the end, as long as he prevails. Right now, he's not enjoying himself necessarily because he can't find a way past that pesky McLaren. Sandy Mitchell, bear in mind, got the drive-through as well as the mandatory pit stop, didn't he? So
yes,
if you add those two together, I think that's why he's down in 7th. As now Tarek Gamil tries the outside line at Stowe, where there might be a bit more traction. And it doesn't work. He's tried everything else. He might as well have a go on that line, but it came to naught then as they dropped down the Vale into Club Corner. Now you've got to take your hat off to Florian Hasse here, because he has really done a good job of defending. Hopefully there isn't going to be anything nasty about that pit stop. He did come in at the right time, but we think it might be a grounding in the system that's not showing he or Liam McNeely served their stop. So hopefully that won't be an issue post-race, and this is a proper good fight for second spot, with Gamil crawling all over the back of him with 5 minutes on the clock.
This is absolutely sensational stuff. Hasse again knows what to do on the braking, on the inside, covers the inside line, gets the car stopped at the apex, retains the inside line for the left-hander. Gamil trying to go wide to bring it in tight to get the better run off the corner, but Hasse once again has got a McLaren in the piece of track that Tarek Gamil wants to occupy in his 718 Cayman. And fantastic, as you say, David, Florian Hasse, it's so difficult to not start defending fresh air, not start being too overly defensive and losing more and more time. He's covering the line exactly when he needs to, and Tarek Gamil, for his part, is trying every trick in the book to find a way past.
But there must be one more trick he's not tried, because he's running out of options. He's running out of time, he's running out of laps, but he's definitely running out of options. Florian Hasse then hangs on to the position. Tom Canning's GT3 Aston Martin is going to be the next car up behind them, alongside and then past them as they dive into copse. And Gamil there tries to follow suit, gets the inside line, late decision to make the move. Now this could work for him. Look, he's going to have the outside for Maggots, but it'll be the inside for the Beckett's S's. Bobby Trundling gets caught up behind them. Tarek Gamil, if he's really brave, has the inside. He's up the curb. He still can't do it, and Trundling pounces. That's brave on his part to get through the traffic. Tarek Gamil tried everything he could there. In theory, that should have gone his way, but he still can't nail it, can he? What a fight.
This is the only series I have ever done that makes me throw my arms into the air like a caricature. That was absolutely fantastic. Hasse got off the gas to let the GT3 pass. Tarek Gamil saw an opportunity. Now he goes to the outside again. Gamil not quite enough grip. The back end of the car getting a little bit squirrely, but that was the best opportunity for Tarek Gamil, and now he's got his gander up. Now he's flashing the lights at Florian Hasse ahead of him. Hasse will realise this is where the pressure lies with these two cars, and Tarek Gamil knows opportunities are starting to run out. He's got to make the move, but that was some of the best racing I have seen in a long time.
And we're not done yet. 3 more minutes are on the clock. Blue flag shown by the marshals. Not that Florian Hasse needs them necessarily. He knows he's in a proper race. He knows he's in a proper battle. And Tarek Gamil then right up behind him. He goes to the outside line down towards Village. Ben Green's BMW is the next one to come up to try and spoil their battle. Gamil is alongside. He's alongside. There's contact. Big slide by Hasse. More contact. Hasse is all sideways and he spins. He goes around. So Tarek Gamil has finally gone through. But what will the outcome be from race control if they have a look at that in the conditions? Was that a racing incident, or will somebody cop for the blame? Shame it ends that way. Tarek Gamil goes through, but let's wait and see. What do you think about that one, Paul?
What a tragic way to end an incredible fight. The GT3 car got involved in the mix. I think it was Ben Green got involved in the mix as well. Kind of compromised what the two fighters in GT4 were trying to achieve, and I'd like to see that one again, because it all kind of happened and I was waving my arms around like an idiot back here behind my desk, so I didn't really see it all, but such a shame. And now Florian Hasse has got it all to do, because he's got a few more cars in between himself and Gamil again, and only at minute 55 to do something about it.
Yeah, I don't think he is going to do anything. He almost needs, if you like, the race control to assist in getting a place back. But yes, he's dropped back behind Cloutier, hasn't he? So he lost the place to Gamil. He's lost another one to Hot Laps qualifier Pierre-Olivier Cloutier, the KTM. You can see just up the road ahead of him there. And he remains ahead of Niels Naujock. So, yeah, you've got a feel for Florian Hasse. But in a way, perhaps that was the only way the battle could have ended. Let's have another look at it then. This brings the cars through Club Corner. So we get quite a long build-up to it. So you can see the way here that Gamil was really quick again coming out of Club, slightly tighter line, that brought him fractionally closer. and then the run up through Abbey. So at this point he's about 3 lengths back, closes, uses lots of curb into Abbey, flick left through Farm. Keep an eye as well on that BMW of Ben Green in the background, but from Gamel's point of view the move was coming anyway up towards Village, so he had a look on the outside. There Husser goes deep into the corner, moves across, and if anything it was Husser, I would say, that rather induced that, because he was the one coming back across towards Gamel. Gamel didn't move towards him.
Yeah, that's very interesting, actually. You're exactly right there, David. So Gamel narrowed the angle of entry into the left-hander to make it so Husser would have to be harder on the brakes and give himself the advantage. Then Husser just kind of ran out of road, made contact with Tariq Gamel, got his car sideways, and that was that, unfortunately, as we're heading now to the very final lap. And who's this? James Baldwin. Not seeing much of you, sunshine.
No, exactly right. So James Baldwin then is on target for a race win, for a championship win, and he was remarkably sanguine when we spoke to him after not winning at Oulton Park. Won on the road, lost it on a penalty, but I just wonder if he wins at Donington as well, whether he'll get really grumpy about Oulton Park, because it's the one that will have spoiled the 100% record. However, this has been an absolute masterclass, and it's been perhaps the easiest race thus far. He hasn't really had to break sweat for this one. So James Baldwin comes now out of club corner, but you can certainly, just as you watch him, understand why he's got the sim pedigree that he has. This has been an immaculate drive, Paul.
Yeah, I think you summed that up. That's the perfect word, David. Immaculate. Not even looked close to putting a wheel wrong. Just delivered the job. The hardest part was the start. Nailed that one. And then just metronomic, deliver, lap after lap. Fabulous.
Every box ticked, wasn't it? Pole position, fastest lap, race win, championship won. What more could he want? So James Baldwin accelerates onto Wellington Straight. The McLaren 720S GT3 for Team Rocket RJN comes to the end of Wellington Straight into Brooklands. The clock has hit 0. We've got another round of the championship in 2 weeks' time at Donington Park, where GT4 is very much going to be the focus of attention, like it's not been tonight. But as far as race honours are concerned at Silverstone, it is going to be 3 out of 4 for James Baldwin then. He comes up through Woodcote. A race win for James Baldwin. The British GT Esports Championship won by James Baldwin as well. Fantastic drive. Dominates the race, wins the championship, and a 1-2 for the team as well, because Alex Buncombe is going to come through to take second place, and the Husser-Gamil incident is a racing incident, say Race Control. Alex Buncombe then gets his best result of the season as he comes up towards the timing line, goes through now, and a job well done by Alex, recovering of course for his earlier drama. And Angus Fender, well, he gave it his best shot to keep his championship hopes alive, but it just wasn't enough, and the BMW mysteriously slow relative to the McLarens, especially in that second stint, Paul.
Yeah, brave performance in the end by Angus Fender. And Jack McIntyre, another driver we've seen very little of, David.
And he's on target for his maiden win in the GT4 categories. He comes up now towards the line, and that's been in the post, hasn't it? It's an overdue victory, that. So it also means that we have had 4 different winners in GT4 in 4 races. Tariq Gamil is going to be second to make it a 1-2 for Porsche. So you've had a dominant driver really in GT3. You've had a different winner every time out in GT4, which underlines just how competitive that is.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic category so far as Tariq Gamil crosses the line in second position for his best result of the championship. And in third place, rounding out the podium, is one of our new drivers. So Pierre-Olivier Gloutier crosses the line in third position. First time we're asking a podium in the KTM, and championship leader Nils Naujoks in fourth position in class, ahead of Florian Hasser, behind Florian Hasser, fifth position in class. A good result considering.
Very definitely, and an excellent drive by James Baldwin, excellent drive by Jack McIntyre, the 2 class winners. It's been a long time coming, that win, as I say, for Jack Mack, but a very impressive drive indeed in GT4. So James Baldwin it is who takes the race win, with second place going the way of Alex Buncombe, Angus Fender third, Tom Canning fourth, ahead of Bobby Trundley, and then Ben Green sixth. Sandy Mitchell again compromised because of the penalty in seventh place, eighth going the way of Liam McNeely, ninth Jack McIntyre to win in GT4, and 10th overall Tariq Gamil, second GT4, with the third GT4 driver, as Paul was saying, Pierre-Olivier Cloutier, Hot Laps qualifier in the KTM. So, as a wet Silverstone, certainly gave drama for many. Angus Fender frustrated, vanquished in a sense, isn't he, after that opening round win. He's been there or thereabouts, but just not quite able to stay in the mix as far as the championship is concerned. Anyway, with a round to go, we have a champion. James Baldwin, first ever British GT Esports champion. James, well done. Let's talk about the race first of all. That looked pretty easy.
Hello, David. Yeah, it was a good race, a bit more relaxed than Brands Hatch, which is good. But yeah, it was the wet conditions that really helped me out. I think the McLaren was strong anyway, but in the wet, it kind of definitely showed. And yeah, it's going to be the last time I speak to you in this particular instance, David, because I'm not going to do the final round having won the title. So it's been emotional, but
well, I was going to ponder that because I was thinking if you did win at Donington, then you might not be quite as sanguine about Oulton Park, because that could have been, you know, the one that got away from your 100% record. But is that because you're going to give people a chance, or you've got real world commitments instead for the last round weekend?
No, I wish I did have real world commitments, but it's other esports commitments in other competitions. So yeah, it's getting pretty busy. So I thought I'd try and win today, get the title, and give me a bit more time to practice. But no, it's been great fun. Yeah, credit to British GT to put on a great series, and hopefully they do another one.
Just go back to the race for a second, because again, one of the things we were pondering early on was the role that Alex was going to play for you, and whether he was very much going to be rear gunner, just in case Angus was able to go after you. In the end, the McLaren proved to be the much quicker car anyway, but was that the team strategy?
No, there was, well, after quali, I think in the wet in this game, the sim guys, or the people with sim experience, have a bit more of an advantage. So after quali, Alex got in touch and said, have you got a few pointers with the setup? So I kind of gave him a few tips, and I think in the race it showed, because at the end of the race, his race pace was not too dissimilar to mine. So no, credit to him, he saw a massive improvement there in the race.
Okay, so let's talk about the rest of the season. You've said to me on a couple of occasions in the last few weeks that a real world season isn't looking that promising, sadly. Is that right?
A full campaign, definitely not.
Right.
I think there may be the opportunity at some point, if I'm lucky, to do one or two races. To be honest, I don't know, but my goal is to obviously continue with the esports, but try and find a way back into real life. I feel like there's a bit of unfinished business there, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I'm enjoying the esports stuff, so it's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen.
And it's another championship won, so it's all good for the CV, James.
Yeah, exactly, David.
Well, congratulations, well done. It's been a great season and another faultless drive here at Silverstone. James Baldwin, British GT Esports champion for 2021. Well done.
Thank you very much, David.
So James Baldwin, congratulations to him as race winner again and champion. And as the drivers make their way on the graphic back towards the pit lane, we might be able to have a word with Jack McIntyre as well. Finally, a GT4 class winner. And Paul, it's been quite a drive from Jack tonight.
Yeah, fabulous stuff. Jack, welcome to the commentary box, and congratulations on that long overdue and well-deserved first victory.
Thank you. Got there in the end. Yeah, had an awful week last week, so it was good to get the ballast off and have a good run at it this week. And yeah, couldn't really gone any better.
Now, we've seen a lot of pace from you so far this season. What was different about Silverstone? Is it all coming together?
I think the bob helped a little bit. I can't deny that. The Porsche is absolutely rapid around here. I think me and Tarek were quite a way off the front in quali, so that gave us a bit of an advantage. But then I just put a lot of work in this week. Worked a lot on the setup, and the time's all paid off.
Now, from our point of view, we didn't see much of you on screen. Such was your domination. What was it like from behind the wheel? Was it as easy as it appeared to us watching on TV?
No. No, if it was dry, it might have been a different story. But in the wet, it's every single corner is a bit of a challenge when you're right on the edge. So it was, 60 minutes of being absolutely terrified.
Yeah, well, you did an absolutely fabulous job, and that's 25 points in the bank. Now, heading to Donington, final race of the year, you'll have 30 kilograms of success ballast for your troubles. How do you think that's going to affect the 718?
It's going to be tough, isn't it? I mean, I think it's probably advantage to Niels. I think I'm not sure where he finished, but I assume his ballast is gone for next week, so it's going to be tough. We'll see what the weather does. Hopefully it rains again. I think the Porsche goes really well in the wet as well, so it's also to play for. Who knows?
Now, you were talking about Nils there. That's Nils Naujoks, who you're in the championship fight with you. We suggested at the start of this broadcast that this was a must-win race for you. So that's one box ticked. Do you think you've got enough left in the armoury at Donington Park to put up a fight for the title?
I hope so. I really like Donington. It's probably one of my favourite tracks. So I've just got to put the time in this week, and yeah, hopefully it'll come together. I mean, it's really tough with all the GT3s, and there's a lot of incidents and a lot of things that can go wrong, and I kind of experienced that last week. So you never really know what happens until the final lap.
Well, Jack, it was fantastic to see that much deserved and long-awaited race victory. So congratulations, winner of the British GT Esports Silverstone Round 4.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Fantastic stuff. And David, it was a long overdue and much deserved victory for Jack McIntyre as well, wasn't it?
It was long overdue, absolutely, but he didn't put a wheel wrong. And what's going to be interesting now is to see, of course, the other edge of that sword carrying the weight in the championship showdown as we're going to have at Donington. We did touch earlier on the fact that we'd lost a few GT3 drivers because of real-world commitments. Quick word for Sam Neary, who is a regular with us in British GT Esports. He's been racing at Donington today in the lower-level GT Cup, where he's won 3 out of 3. 3 races, 2 sprint and an endurance, and he and his dad Richard have sewn up the weekend between them. So 3 race wins for Sam Neary. So if you're going to miss this championship, I suppose it's with justification. You take 3 race wins. Fair enough.
Now,
so well done, Sam Neary.
Does that mean that we have to apply an additional success ballast to him because that's unfair practice? That's taking esport racing to the absolute level of doing a real life race to get practice for the esport round the following couple of weeks. So good on Sam, congratulations with that.
And of course Donington is the venue, as Paul alludes to, for the final round in 2 weeks' time. If you want your esports fix next week, then Saturday evening from Monza, both a virtual Monza but taking place at the real Monza, if you're still with me, will be the first round of the GT World Challenge Europe Esports Championship, where real world drivers competing at that event in the real world GT World Challenge will do an esports race, and points from that are carried into the team's championship. So that's next weekend. There's real world GT World Challenge Europe from Monza, plus the esports competition as well. But in 2 weeks' time, the final round of British GT Esports is coming up. That is from Donington. And Paul, I can't wait to see how the GT4 fight pans out, because that is teeing itself up to be a mega battle, isn't it?
Oh, it's going to be absolutely incredible. Donington is my favourite place in the whole wide world, so beautiful track to finalise the season's fight. And as you say, GT4, incredibly intense. Will it be Nils Naujoks? Will it be the man we've just spoken to, Jack McIntyre? Or can we get a 5th different winner in 5 races? We'll find out on the 25th of April. But for everybody at home, don't forget, you can still hot lap qualify to be a part of that event at Donington Park. And if not, you can catch us same time, same place, GT World YouTube channel and various social media channels as well. So, David, as always, it's been a pleasure, and on to the next one.
Yeah, it has been another fascinating race. You've got to take your hat off to James Baldwin, haven't you? Because he has been very much the professional, really good ambassador for sim racing in both the way he's raced, the way he's conducted himself with the disappointment of Oulton Park, with the way he's won the championship. So James comes across, as indeed he is, as a great guy, and as I say, a good ambassador for the British GT Esports Championship and for sim racing in general. And with the GT4 battle going down to the wire, we have still got lots to play for in 2 weeks' time.
Fantastic. Well said. Somebody give James Baldwin a drive. And from David and myself, Paul Jeffrey, David Addison and Paul Jeffrey, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Take care. Stay safe. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.